Welcome to Blue Talks. All right, so welcome back to another one of the live interview shows. Just a heads up, sometimes we share kind of behind the curtain. The reason I don't name it when I do it is because it's probably going to be repurposed, who knows where. So I don't name it the name of my podcast because you never know. So having said all of that, I'm excited to welcome my guest today. JJ and I met actually at an event called the New Media Summit. And Steve Olsher used to run the New Media Summit. And I will say a little shout out that I missed that event. It's one of the events where I met so many amazing people, and it doesn't run anymore, so I really miss it. So having said that, that's where we met, both podcasters in the podcasting space. And so JJ, where I'd like to start, and I do this sometimes with my interviews, rather than me sort of read a bio, is there anything you'd like to highlight about your background that you can tell us before we dive right in?
How much time do we have? I have an interesting path. I'll just go from like left brain to right brain, child, creative, interested, curious, wanted to be an actress so I could be all the things in the world. I wanted to play everything, experience everything. I became a personal trainer because I loved my body and wanted to be healthy, and I wanted to help other people do that. Got really successful in the personal training industry, was named Best Personal Trainer in Los Angeles by Elite Traveler Magazine in 2007. I've been on NBC, CBS, Fox News, in a bunch of magazines, but I always wanted like the deeper question of like what drives us. And the whole physical body component was never the end of the story for me. If somebody wanted to lose weight or wanted to have a different relationship with their body, I wanted to ask different questions. What motivates us? Why? We know how to eat well and exercise. Why don't we do it? So I kind of dove into all of that and asked better questions. When someone had pain and I could fix it structurally or hormonally or nutritionally, but why does the pain keep coming when someone doesn't have those issues? What else creates pain in our lives? And so I did the deep dive into the spiritual, the epigenetics, looking at law of attraction, looking at the emotions and how the emotions affect everything in our lives. And I have to tell you, if I had to say what's the most important thing in the world, what's the one thing that can change everything, it's how you feel. Your emotions run every choice you make. They're the reason why you do anything ever. So let's go there. So I took a deep dive into that, became an empowerment strategist. I have my own certification. I've got a podcasting network called the Empowering Minds Network. I've been podcasting now for 11 years. I was one of the People's Choice Awards for Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, and have a full-time living helping people learn how to love themselves.
Wow. Amazing. I love it. And I feel like you've shared that once before. you have the ability to share that. So not everybody can, in a short amount of time like that, share their story. And I feel like we got to know you really well in a very short amount of time. So I love that. So JJ, let's dive in there. You talked about the emotion side, and for me, that's been one of the things over the years, like yourself, and I haven't done the work immediately, like to dive into why people struggle in this area or that area. But it always fascinates me, as you said, like we can go to the health food store and there's 75 magazines that'll tell us different ways to get healthy. And the next month, 75 more magazines, and yet people are still struggling every day at a higher volume. And so if it's the emotion side, where do people need to start? Like, what's the step we should take outside of working with you? What's the step we should take to go in the right direction then, rather than pick up that magazine again and read the opposite as we read last month, and then start doing the opposite of what we did last month?
Well, our physical body and our environment and everything we manifest is a reflection of what we believe about ourselves. So to go in from the side of I'm just going to deal with the physical, and the physical says, I have these issues, what should I do with them physically? But how epigenetics, let's talk about epigenetics for a second, because I've worked with a lot of cancer doctors and a lot of physicians with different patients doing different things. And even though the physical body is extremely important and we definitely want to feed it well, we want to treat it well, we want to have it rested, they're all things that we can do with our physical body. Epigenetics is basically quantum physics in living action, right? Quantum physics, law of attraction, is that every frequency exists, and everything that we can see in our lives is based on how we are focused. When I focus on something, it becomes this linear, I like to liken it like a building. Imagine you're in a 10-story building, and I'm on the first floor, and you're on the 10th floor. Well, I can't see what's happening on the 10th floor, but you can see what's happening on the 10th floor. So where am I living in terms of my frequency and how I'm looking at the world? How I'm looking at the world has many, many different interpretations and factors that goes into how I take in life and digest life. And so what are those factors? So for me, one of the things that I learned the hard way, because that's how we learn, right? We have contrast that forces us to focus. It was when I was trying to save my marriage, which is actually why I started my podcast in the first place. And I said, how can I fix this? I can fix this. I can fix anything, because if I just learn how it's put together, I know how to deconstruct it and then figure out something else to do about it. Well, I went on this deep dive, and one of the last things we did in therapy was something called imago therapy, created by Harville Hendricks and Helen Kelly Hunt. And imago therapy is, in my opinion, the only therapy anyone should ever be looking at. To me, when I started my podcast and I started to come out of the closet as an empowerment strategist and as an emotional coach, what I didn't expect to happen was sort of the flood of people who wanted the law of attraction conversation and the spiritual conversation, where it was amazing. I put out the podcast, and 2 months later, everyone's like, oh my God, this is changing my life. I want more. And I thought, okay, what do I do with them? I don't even have anything to give to them. So I went on this deep dive to figure out how to assess people in a different way. And so I ended up back in imago therapy with my ex-husband, and there's a core wound exercise. Now, you would have said to me, JJ, if you knew that you were doing a behavior that was not working, would you change it? I'd say, of course I would change it. So what I learned in that exercise, we did this imago core wound exercise, and I remember even saying to my ex-husband, I know what I'm doing is not working. He's like, it's not. I'm like, I don't know why I keep doing it. So I'm doing this exercise, and then all of a sudden I see the pattern. Now, I use a lot of different frameworks to help people love themselves and figure out what's underneath. And one of them is astrology. And I'm a Pisces, very feeling, very intuitive, sometimes psychic person, who also has a Sagittarius rising, moon, and soul, which Sagittarians are very about truth seeking. I'm always about truth seeking. So I'm looking at this piece of paper and I'm seeing my pattern that goes all the way back to childhood. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, this is not just about this situation. So I immediately stopped that behavior. I thought, well, if this tool can help me stop this behavior, how can it help other people sort of uncover this? So I've created something called a core wound map. And in terms of where somebody would start, it would be to understand that you are a complex human being, that from the time you were born until 7, you did not have a conscious brain. You had consciousness, you were aware, you were awake. But you didn't have an observer mind that could go into your thoughts and feelings and understand and choose and have a distance of emotion from your thoughts and feelings. You were literally running theta and delta waves in your brain until 7, which is basically hypnosis. You were being hypnotized from the time you were born until you're 7, and your brain was just trying to survive. You're a little kid going, I just want connection and survival. How do I get connection and survival? So you were interpreting things through that framework, through that lens, and making decisions and assessments that become your beliefs. Now, there are many other factors besides your core wounds, but when I saw the core wound situation for me, and I started to use it with clients, I thought, this is the conversation we need to be having. I literally said to that therapist, why isn't everyone doing this exercise before going to therapy? How do you know to treat something you know what the problem is? Mm-hmm. So back to the podcast, invited all these new people into my space, and I used to give this used to sell this 2-session starter pack. I don't do that anymore. And people would come from the show and we'd do these 2 sessions, and often I would run them through this core wound exercise. And after the second session, they'd say, oh my God, my life has changed. I got more out of these 2 sessions than I ever did in 3, 5, 7, or 10 years of therapy. And I thought that happened 9 out of 10 times so often that I thought, you know what, maybe I need to lean into this. Which, of course, I'm uncomfortable because I'm not a trained therapist. I'm a coach. But, education and learning is education and learning. I'm a smart person. I can read a book. I can do a practice. I can learn things. So why can't I learn some of the same things that therapists learn? So I learned from imago therapy and then have created something now called a core wound map. So you're asking, how do people without working with me get this information? I will announce that my new book will be picked up by my agent and sold to a publisher in the near future. So by the time you're revisiting this or watching this, join my list, follow me somewhere, and the book will be out, and it will help you go through your core wounds, figure out what that map is, understand your patterns and behaviors so that you know what to do about them. Too often we are so victimized by our stories. We're so infatuated. We are addicted to our stories. And when you understand that your story is not you, and that I can probably say safely 100%, your stories are wrong. They're wrong because you think they're truth. They're your truth because it's how you saw the world, but they're not the truth. The truth and there isn't many multiple truths, right? It could come from like, what happened, what were your wounds? What were your parents' wounds? Can I tell a quick story about a client who kind of went through this? I've learned that I've kind of been starting to specialize in people that do the work. So if you come from a background of doing therapy and you feel a little failed by therapy, you're not different in the same situation. I actually created a quote during COVID because I'd watched a lot of therapists with clients and clients that were working with other people, and I'd see them never change. So to me, healing is when you're different in the same situation. I'm gonna repeat that again. Healing is when you're different in the same situation. And you're not knee-jerking to get divorced, quit your job, and move to another city. You take you with you. This is an internal reflection of what's going on in the world. And what's going on in your world, right? You're a mirror to bringing things in. And another quote that I'll mention is Dr. Wayne Dyer's quote, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It's real. So this client, he comes to me, he'd been 7 years sober, and his wife wanted a divorce. So he comes out of this, and he's just wanting information. He's wanting to consume. He's listening to my podcast and he's consuming information. He's like, what's next? And I said, well, I'm doing this 3-month program. Oh, I'm in. Okay. So we get in, and he still has a therapist on the side, and he says, I worked to my therapist because I wanted to work on the anger I have with my dad. And I was like, stop. You're going to therapy for the anger you have about your dad. So what's this story? What's this belief that you have about your dad? And mind you, this is what caused the addiction in the first place. His whole life had addiction and violence and pain about his dad, because his interpretation was my dad didn't love me. And now he gets to me, and I'm like, no, we're going to crack this wide open in 60 seconds. So I gave him a couple different tools to use, and we framed the story. We went and looked at his core wounds, his dad's core wounds, and their love languages. When I could get him to see it differently, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, he all of a sudden cracked wide open, felt the love for the first time from his dad that he had not felt his entire life. And from now, and even I just interviewed him on my podcast, it's 3 years later, and he connects with his father energetically. He meditates and connects with his father. He cries often. He allows his emotions out often. And he feels more love from his father than he ever did before. His father's since passed. He's been passed. But when you say you can't change the past, yes, you can. Because when you change what you interpret happened, then that disappears and has no more power over you. It was quick. It was instant. And he said, is this easy? I said, it can be. Because when you can turn and look at something differently, it changes what it means to you, and it changes how you relate to it, and it changes how you feel about it. So to me, you look at this addiction was caused by a belief that was inaccurate. And then when I could say, well, look at it this way, and he went, oh my God, I see it now. That's the truth. And now I can release the pain and the story that keeps me bound and crazy and addictive and angry and spinning.
So I want to ask you about that then. One thing you said, and I just don't want to assume. So when you said about, we looked at his father's core wounds and his father's background, did he know that? Because what I'm wondering is, what if somebody comes to you and they have no idea what their parents went through, what their background, maybe their parents died before they were born. Are you pulling that from somewhere, or is usually they telling you?
So within the core wound, like where you start, within the exercise, I'd ask the person to do it first. So you're going to do your exercise and you're going to see the questions. And then when you sort of understand your own wounds, you can pull back and see it differently and start to look at your parents. You can tell, but is it accurate? We won't know, but we can make guesstimates and we can create stories, because if you didn't know their parents, you can see how they reacted to things. What I'm passionate about, my mission is to make people understand that compassion and love is the only way. But when we label people narcissists or whatever, I was gaslit, or like these words that end up being victim, they victimize us. They put us in a disempowered position, and there's nothing we can do about it, because you can't change anybody. You can only change understanding where they might have come from to have compassion for them. So you can take a look at your parents, not know their story, but kind of make assessments and you can make shit up. Right. I don't know if I can say that here, but you can make shit up. Because you know what? You don't know, because you're making shit up anyway. You do know that, right? All of the stories you make about who you are, they're made up, because you didn't ask the person. How many times you have a relationship with someone, you say, well, they didn't do this because they think this about me. And I want to say, did you ask them? Well, no, but okay, did you just assume? You know what they say about assuming, right? Make an ass out of you and me. Okay, so you don't want to assume, you want to confirm. I had another client who she was all afraid about her dad. not believing in her or being proud of her. And I remember what I said to her. I said, have you asked him? Tears. No, I haven't asked him. I said, right, because you're afraid to ask. So what's the worst that can happen? You're going to hold on to this pain and story that he might not, or you can ask him, and if he isn't, he'll tell you, you're going to cry and you're going to get over it and you're going to move on. Let's deal with it. So then, of course, she asked him, and of course he said yes. So now we can let go of that story that's causing pain and anxiety that doesn't need to be present in my life right now.
Well, amazing. And I will say, I've had times in my life where, I've had somebody, whether it's a relationship, friend, what have you, and they never once said, hey, I'm proud of the stuff you're doing. But then I would hear eventually at some point from somebody else and say, oh my God, they never stopped talking about the stuff you're doing. So to your point, the story I was telling myself, and I wasn't like over living it or anything, but I was just like, oh, let's say it was a relationship with a girl, and she's never once said she's proud of me. I'm going out and playing music at clubs. She never once said I like your music, nothing. So I'm like, oh my God, it's weird. Like, I know if she was doing that, I'd be so proud of her and excited. And I thought, well, she's not. And then again, I went to a friend of hers and she said, oh my God, she never stops talking about that. But she never told me once. And I'm not judging that, but I'm just saying the story I was telling myself was she's not proud of me. And meanwhile, she's hugely proud of me, but for whatever reason, maybe finds it hard to tell me that.
So we could have shortcutted that
right.
by knowing that I can already tell your love language is words of affirmation. So if you knew that your love language was words of affirmation, you could have shortcut that and said, hey, just curious, do you think what I do is effective? Are you proud of me? And then just ask the question. And now we don't have to wonder, worry, and ponder about it, right? But that's being proactive about taking care of my needs and knowing that, well, yeah, but we all do that, right? My love language is quality time. And I had a friend come to visit California. She used to live there. She was in my wedding party and then she moved. And when she came, she had this laundry list of things that she was going to do. And I was only included in one of them. And I was like, and then I thought, okay, hold on, what's going on with me? Okay, oh, right, her love language is gifts. It's not quality time. So if you want more time with her, you have to ask because she's not going to want and assume that because that's not her love language.
Got it. Amazing. Well, I want to ask you as we're winding down, I'm looking at your title, Empowerment Strategist. And for me, it's fascinating because I feel like the two words sometimes seem like a juxtaposition almost. Like you've heard Shelley talk about, she feels Blue Talks is army of love. And, when you hear those two words, you're like, army seems like forceful, but love, so there's like a juxtaposition almost. And I find like empowerment strategist seems like that too, like empowering, what have you, but then strategy. So I'm curious, where did that come from? And how does that help people in the way, because it's not just one or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really the combination of right and left brain and masculine and feminine. So it's looking at, we need both, right? We have the left brainers who love structure and they love linear and they love all that, but then they get backed up emotionally. They're usually emotionally constipated. And so they don't understand that this is blocking them. It's causing pain, it's causing cancer. I don't know how to deal with this pain because I'm used to thinking with my brain and having it make sense, and emotions don't necessarily make sense all the time. You can have an emotion and the feeling part makes people feel afraid. You feel vulnerable. You don't feel safe when you're having an emotion. Unlike those of us who are water signs who are like, emotion, I love emotion. Oh my God. So the right brainers are like, they love their emotion. They'll lean into their emotion. It's my expression, but they're not so good with structure, right? You need the strategy and the structure. It's the container. It's the riverbank and the river. The river's the feminine. The riverbank is the masculine. You need both, right? So the river can flow with the bank. So putting it together is understanding that. And some people astrologically, how they're raised, how they are built, they might be heavy in one area versus the other. And we can just take tools and strategies to get more balance. It's really all about achieving balance.
I love it. So as we wind down, it's kind of a two-parter question, but you mentioned, I think yesterday, that there's ways you set up a site or a page where people can get access to more info. So my question was going to be, how can we learn more and follow you? And I think you have a place where people can get a gift as well.
Sure. Well, just jjflizanes.com is my website, and there are actually 3 talks that I would recommend. Well, yes, 3 talks that I would recommend you watch. The first one is 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective. It kind of goes through the strategy, and actually you can kind of look at some of the core wounds and look at the feelings and needs list. And then the second is how emotions affect healing and disease. Very important to understand how your emotions affect healing and disease if you want to heal your disease. And whatever is diseasing you. And then there is one on 3 fastest ways to make money podcasting for those entrepreneurs that have lots to say and need a better platform to consistently give your message and attract the right people to you. jjflizanes.com. I'm big on Instagram. I really like it as a platform to connect with people. And the feelings and needs list is something that I would recommend. Go to the podcast. Spirit, Purpose, and Energy is my flagship show. I'd recommend. It's completely free. I have so much freaking free content, you'll never catch up. So go there first. Know, like, and trust me, then reach out. I'm happy to put together a playlist for anyone who wants something a little bit more specific for your situation and what you're dealing with. And the feelings and needs list is at jjflizanes.com / you will not find this on my website. Feelings list, jjflizanes.com / feelings list. I don't give it away because you don't know what to do with it unless I've told you. And I'll give you one last little thing. So when you get that sheet, here's an exercise for everyone to do right away, and it'll give you a little bit of a roadmap for yourself in terms of your emotional healing. Print out that sheet. And with no story, with no trigger, with no emotional attachment, there's a feelings list at the top, which is 100 different feeling words, and there's 86 basic human needs at the bottom. I want you to print the page and just circle any need that's not being met in your life currently. Now, it's no one else's responsibility to get the need met, so don't go into blame mode. Just be honest about what needs are not being met, and that's how we're going to start reducing anxiety, feeling more safe, feeling more love, and we have a little bit of a map, a little bit of a way to start to moving forward to choosing the right therapies that are right for you.
JJ, this has been an absolute pleasure. I knew it would be. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Treasure you. And I want to call this to be continued with your permission. And I'll say on that note, till next time. So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for joining us, JJ.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.